Develop taamunga tautuktoa hiru tapkuna suangatikun tautuktoartui tapkuaptoq oqaligin minyaqqutsaakkum pulakaalsuskutni unnuapak piharmapluting tavulaguuq inuittaapkua pikihigaittaakanga hivunniortuanittauq uvaniguuq saamskuulmi inuvingi pikihirut tavulaulupak taapkua tuustimi oqaqaneqqat katimaplutik taakakkantilagiisit taapkua Rosemary Kuptana tavulahiñuvani 6th General Assembly mi katimakaming oqaqaneqqattauq tamakkunuuna hivunikilamitikun tavulahit taapkuaptauq Rosemary Kuptana quyagineqaittamaunga tikinniamata tavuttapkua ICC kut katimaruat uvlaakurugoqamma katimaguming Friday mi uvlaami katimagahijigitsut taapkuaptauq qaimaruat taikangaaharuk taaptumani itsakalana qaimahaq qumaruani oqaligit minyaqqutamakkuana killaqaatuhaamaplutingiñungunina taaksinillu ilaatniptoqanyugialaaquting tabaitamakkuaqqautigiligit minyaqaittavula tavulaniingmiktigulli oqaqquting ihummiaquniaqquting tavula havakutigili maani alaaskamallu kianatamillu tuutkalutaamna rasimint qaimaneqsuat aqulliasiiñuvuuna oqaqaligitmavilugu taapkuaguoqiñuit immiktigun itna aulalasinniaqautik pilumikilak pingitkalaamigumiguuq qangeqsiniaqasigaajigmiktigun sapkamamamukpilarigaatiñuit oqaqaneaqamatigmiktigun
across this country. We have different languages, cultures, geographic needs, and therefore self-government will not look the same in each region. So constitutional amendments are one half of the story, and self-government agreements are the other half. I believe that it's the responsibility of the national organization to negotiate the self-government amendments, and then it's up to the regions, perhaps with the help of the national organization, if they so require, to negotiate self-government arrangements so that their needs are met in the region. The next speaker is Stanton.
Thank you. I'll try and make this very brief. I think this is a very important matter. The basic things in listening over the years on this matter, I come to the conclusion that three basic things we must know to ourselves. The first is where we came from. Secondly, where we are today. And finally, the third, where we are going. As Native people, from time immemorial, the justice and liberty for all is very simple. I can define that in few simple and common words. We as Native people must and will remain ourselves. Inuit is our identity. Our determination is to retain our own culture and our land, and simple means that we do not wish to return to the past. It means we refuse to let our future to be dictated by any other system but tribal system and form of governance. We want our native lands to be passed intact from our generation to the next and to the next, beyond our horizons. The value has never depreciated. It is by no means now and will not depreciate under wear and tear. In the name of land development or land planning, Alaska has never been conquered, like someone said, by war or conflict by any nation under the sun. Our forefathers have occupied our lands and have conserved our resources, both wildlife, fowl of the air, and plant life of both sea and land. This has been our ancestors' nutrition to satisfy their hunger and their needs. Then finally, we must secure the future of our undying, renewable resources, our very own children and their children. Let's remember, this is a high stake before us today in value. Our children will be capable of managing their own resources if we plan that in the right direction today. Thank you very much.
In starting negotiations with land claims in Canada, the onset is that the Inuit have to agree to give up title to huge parts of the land in the east. Well, we're talking about the Eastern Arctic. Now, if that is going to be the case, and we're going to push for the recognition of inherent right of self-government, that seems to contradict the principle of recognition of inherent right of self-government. Because any established government usually has the land. And if we're going to push for that recognition, then I think that there should be some recognition that the land belongs to the Inuit and not to the government of, in this case, government of Canada. So, and I think this can apply to all circumpolar Inuit. As I said earlier, we were the ones that were here wherever we were, or wherever we are today. We were here long before anybody else. And therefore, that should be a recognition enough that we have the land, that the land is ours, which has never been conquered or given away or ceded or surrendered.
I wholeheartedly agree with the comments made by Jack Anawak with regard to specific mention of lands. And we might consider the reference of this in terms of lands, territories, and resources, or a broader definition of the Inuit territories that we have inherent rights to. Not only is there the inherent right to self-government, but the inherent right to our lands and resources. Aboriginal right and title to those lands. So we may want to be specific about that. With regard to the issue of extinguishment, I have thought long and hard about it myself. And Jack is quite right that it is a contradiction if in fact there's recognition of the right of inherent self-government, then that land attaches as well. There's the inherent right of self-government and the inherent right to lands and territories and resources. I have been extremely fearful of the use of the term extinguishment from my knowledge of its effect in the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, the extinguishment clauses that exist there, as well as the attempts within the Nunavut agreement. I have thought about how Native peoples, not just Inuit, but indigenous peoples elsewhere who are faced with this extinguishment issue. Just the psychological effect of the use of the term extinguishment is as though one power is dominant over a small peoples. One way out of this is to rely upon a term that Jack did use, and that is cession. That if we in fact have inherent rights to this land, Aboriginal right and title to this land, without question, we've not gone to war, we've not signed a treaty, we've not ceded the land, that if we're engaging in settlements or agreements to this day, that why is it not that Inuit can cede their rights over a territory to another government? It does not have to be extinguishment. Extinguishment is a term that does not have to be used vis-a-vis indigenous peoples and their rights to lands. It's something that we might explore in the future. When I read through the Nunavut agreement, again, the word extinguishment leapt off the page, and I started thinking, well, how can we respond to this issue of extinguishment and dominant colonial forces that are still with us today? So we might want to look into that area in the future in terms of international law and the use of cession of our lands and rights if we agree and consent to this, and move away from this notion of extinguishment and dominant.
Uvahi Dr. Environment Miko Kakamik Tamareo Hiletik Tamana Nunalu Munaramaki Lugo.
Many speakers on the previous days spoke about the need to ensure that the land will continue to be able to provide for our people. Threats to our environment, both external and internal, continue to grow. They range from transboundary pollution to increased pressures on our wildlife and plant resources. Solutions cannot come from outside of our region. They cannot be conceived by others. They must be written and enforced by ourselves.
It was concern for the environment that started the ICC up 15 years ago. I would guess that probably 30% of the resolutions that have been passed by the ICC in the last 15 years are environmental oriented. We continue to pass these resolutions, and some often even the same from the previous 3 years. As you're developing your work up there, this panel, I think that what you need to consider is an implementation plan to implement our environmental concerns, our renewable resources concerns at the national and international level, and set some guidelines and some timetables and some schedules to measure this organization's success, rather than coming back 3 years later and having the same discussion again.
The Inuit were innocent victims of the international ban on sealskins, and we all know what problems that caused. We are once again becoming innocent victims of humankind's overconsumption of resources and the continuing destruction of our natural environment. The thinning of the ozone layer is not our fault. It is being caused by industrial and other pollution in parts of the world which are far removed from our homelands. The cause is from somewhere else. But the problem is right here. Most of the ozone depletion is happening over the poles, over the homelands of our people. My youngest son is 7 years old. In the spring and summer, he likes to spend all day out in the sun.
brings me a lot of pain and anger.
Tayo tayo man isimalog ibalog
When I
pikigay
have to
man
worry about his
nagliksa ko tiblogo iman na
just
isimagiblogo
because
kanok
he's being
kanna
a
ko tingan
child
iman naptaw no taw
playing
wala
the
kane.
sun. It is my feeling that the
Tayo
Leaders
taw le sino
Circle
ba
Conference,
misigi mayo tayo umang
must make
katimayuanen.
the issue of the ozone
Tayo tamat tumaw singa tayo tayo man na
top priority
saglijuta
in its work.
iman na sang isibiadog lu tayo tayo na piyak sakigat.
We have vital dependence on the marine and also other species of animals.
Misigi wakibun ngok tamat ko kalui takiw ngok na kayo tayo manilo
It
no
is
name.
extremely important that we have
Tayo go
control
kemana
of
isumagayak sa bun
our
ngok.
utilization levels.
Uwaptik tu di manay lisimati laptik tun
For
ngok.
many years,
Kapsini go
Inuit
kiyo ne.
have managed resources,
Ingmi kun ngok mani go kinibalen ngok mo na bagay no naktigo ne kayo tikulot
something
no
called
naktigulo.
on multi-species approach on management.
Iman na mo na
This
kayo ato natan ko
approach
ato
is
ni libro
becoming
tago.
an international principle.
Muna go tayo bat tayo man na ichusego tayo
Different
ilitso
forums are
makikay no na may sumilaka.
realizing that our way of managing the resources
Tayo go
is the
ka
right
kanok
way.
anaw siyo tilakot manin no
And I
nakting
hope
ne.
this will continue.
Tayo man na go tayo isum tayo man na isum makawakap ta. Namunagalan.
So far, we have made sure that our interests are included in international organizations, international conferences,
Kapsiti
where
man na
decisions and
no
actions
takangamik
are negotiated.
sumilaka. Manalo sa
I
wangamik
think it's
sumilaka.
time now
Kang magok
to
tayo ba.
implement all
Tam na.
kinds of resolutions
Isumaliw na kayo tayo ba kang
in
magok.
ICC
ICC mi.
to the
Subsistence in
Tam na
Alaska
ko
is
ilano
not
lapit
just
nga dinuni ako
taking
tikigle.
of fish and game for our use. In Alaska, it signifies our entire culture that's based around
Tayo sulip tayo tayo man na naryutin nila kalong tayo man na inuni akapta tayo sulip tayo
whole society.
tayo man na inuusak ko tayo man na nalurain ko
We talk
tiga.
about subsistence. We're talking
Tayo
about
tayo nakiksap tayo man angon akapta tayo tayo kasi tayo iwagot inuusak ko na kausarik.
unlike the previous speaker from Alaska, I
Tayo
can't
balog tayo man na sibula may kakakta ko ta kanok na niso
Fortunately, I
ito
don't
dun.
have to because I'm supposed to stick to current issues.
Tayo tayo lagi siya naglita magkuat kanok kausiya wagtuat kang kausa niya akapkit.
In the last couple of years, been on
Ubagot
under a
tayo
new
kapsa niyo
onslaught
kayo ni malaw ni lunit.
by the people who govern us from
Tayo atan naktuyo
other parts of
duwapting
the
nun.
world,
Hadlan nun ani.
who are trying to address our needs.
Tayo
again.
tayo kanok tulo ta magkuat di man na
Like
biyak
always,
sawat
when they
tutkik
address
sa
our
niya
needs,
aktuit.
that means they want something from us. They want to
Tayo
take
masi
something
tayo
away
tayo
from us.
matutkik sa niya amik tayo sulip tayo uwapting
that's
nit sumik
happening again.
pisuktud. Tayo tayo manitukang maito.
The Alaska courts have struck down our state subsistence policy.
Ay sulip tayo Alaska mi tayo kakti takavi tayo taman na uwapting nakin
Fortunately, we saw this
tayo
coming a
bisya
few years ago,
naglakanok
and
tulo
we have
bago
some
taman na
protection
kang
under
ma
federal law, which gives us
mukti
protection
kikput.
for about 60% of the lands in Alaska.
Ay sulip tayo taman na ang iyok ang kaya banit kang ma mukhaw sa gabi pimagat.
They're taking a
Takun
narrow
nagsimablo
view
tigo tayo ang mika
They're
naw
not
siyo
protecting
tigo
the fish
inuin
we
ngo
rely
kayak tidik.
because the federal government, the United States government says that the state has the jurisdiction,
Tayo
even though
kay
the law
maliyan
says
ngo
otherwise.
stage go tayo go
even when we get help,
igmigon ngo kay kaluin ngo ka angalat
It's
kain ngo.
not the kind of help that we deserve.
Tayo matsin ngo wag kayak to
So
siyong
we
mitut.
have that problem.
Tayo tayo pingasan yung kiyo na kang ma katimayuan ilalak to. Kaya kang ma ukaw siksawa na tok tayo na green light na gayata kano kan dia tingin nik.
Kimang madik na mukpang ngo naluyun ngo king mikon.
The different seals, the ring seal,
Alla nga yo ek tun ngo na sitap ko tayo ko simagay.
seal and the walrus. have each played their important role providing us food and clothing.
Tayo kanno amik tigungo muna kay bakait nakimik tigulo.
Sealskin trade provided
Ilan
an
ilunin ngo
important basis for the
ami
economy
tigungo
of
tuniyo
our hundred
kaklugit.
societies.
Magkwadangon ni akto anon.
What happened to this income when the Greenpeace
Subago kasi na Greenpeace dapat ko tikin matagok. Subat. Suik ludik.
the results of that campaign?
Suik ludik dapat
What
ko.
the belugas, the narwhals, the bowheads, and the
Tama kilalok kalo alla nga yogit. Tayo inuvialon ngo ko dili si magigut tamat ko agor ne khiyabot.
international whaling through centuries has diminished.
Kangagok ingilagan kilalok ke khayat nungublutigok suik ludik.
On all commercial whaling was necessary and actually introduced in 1985.
Tayo go 85 migok tayo tap ko ngok. Kilalok ke khayat.
Was then supposed to through the next period of 5 years
Go misi yangit tap ko ngok kiutal lima tikit pata.
on which a sustainable management
Kanok imana mo ya muna kayak sangit.
healthy whale stocks. At this time,
Hang mata tayo tamakwat inul gata iwan Greenland me tayo tayo na angunya layot angwangnik
during the moratorium, the public views
kang makisanik tayo tamakwat not kakter simang mata inu siya alangok simayo
to many people, and the mere killing of the whales has become an important issue for the
tayo
whale
luni tayo na kilaluwag na alo ang mata ni tayo tayo ukaw siya waktu ang iyamik
environment.
tayo tayo kanok tulo
Nearly got a status as holy animals. The IWC is under pressure from
tayo tayo tap ko IWA kata iwalo kau tayo ya waktu di mana nama konungat nagyutin naglilisok tinid Greenpeace ni lo tayo tayo mana ukau tayo ya pagludiglo.
In addition, the search for more human killing methods may
Tayo
delay
sulip tayo
the restart.
kanok tulo tayo tayo mana ni wedik sa kilawang na ako tayo kanik ko ang malay ching nakto.
The positive treatment we are giving as Aboriginal peoples in a negative way. IWC has a growing interest in
IWC yok tap ko tayo isima yungok isima liok tun ngok.
small cetaceans. If
Isima
that
liok tigigait.
happens, our hunter belugas and narwhal
Kang magok tap ko at kilalok kalo tayo kay talang ayokit.
are the whale protectionists.
Tayo
I want to
tokot
congratulate
kong ilugit isig mo na gagalok kait.
on Wednesday, September the 4th, 1991, they landed
Tayo ako rin ko may kataw tayo tap ko kama giblu di no evaluate tayo September 4, 1991 ako vaccine mata. Tayo sulip tayo kakating may Mustafa Toba tap ko na United Nations tamakkwat ukaw sa kayang ilo isimagayang ilo iman na kanok tulo imatak imalap tayo nakiyutin nungun na pituan sa ukaw sa kablugit.
Small amount of people. We have a basic need in terms of our land and
Nunap tigulo
resources.
kanok mani
How in the past,
kanok ingilan nunataman
whim has been able to subject us to hardship.
kanok manay no niya ako tikpot sa pernak tigiyak.
Further is being done with regard to the North. He has agreed that he will seek our input.
Tayo bago ka nalag niya ka tigun ngok tabi ma.
Tayo sulip tayo iman ino iskat lang ako alaming mat tayo tayo manitimig manatang anak inugyak siblone tayo wala iman na nutakakik tuwali iman ilani ayok sa utawa ako pagtot iman na kanok tut ningak tutiglo ni tayo imiro ilak tak tutiglo pimayot tayo wala inming nulo tukot tak tutig tayo wala kanok tulo iman na tutkit tuamig inuliak tutig ilagid tayo tayo manitimig nangin na vialok to
these demands overwhelming is that the international economic decline also works disappeared from
Same as they were when I first started getting involved
Aula
almost 30
ka
years
ngok
ago.
tayo 30 years na tayo ngok tayo gok sila alla lo
I'm
yutut.
starting to believe, as I get older and more cynical,
Upeligat inna ko kami.
as long as we are governed by others, not
Tayo
of
man
our
nagok
own
atan
races,
ngok kuptalagun
the
kisian
issues will
angalat
remain
pagpadigut.
current. And many of the things that we will be looking at are issues that you're familiar with.
Aywa sulip tak tamak ko inugyak tu di mau kau serenak tu. Aywa tayo anu taong itu lidip singnut kanak tu. Anu tarait ilagi tayo ayak sauti ke waktu ngat. Iman dalu kanak tu in mikurangan logistik si ayak sauti ke yang lo.
One of our greatest problems in our lands is our problem with
Sulip tak
alcohol
tayo taman ilang ayak sauti ke yakput. Kisianik tayo tamakwat kanok inu serlong nak tayo tamakwat dos nik tayo yut atok tayo bang mata. Aywa tayo liman na tayo kuna Alaska Native tayo taman na tayo maktin yaklo kang ma iman ay sulip tayo tako kublo lima tangang naklo tamakkunong alo imingang naktorot manachinon.
there's a better way.
Aywa inu ilit sarip karne aklo ito yuat nakunak sa meg inu sarok sak inu ilayot.
We cannot hope to
Ilit ko sa mo
solve
ayok sa uti kiyangit.
We have to become strong as individuals, as families, as tribes, before
Tayo
we
gok
can
suang ayok kun ngok sa
hope to deal
sa
with the rest of the
faktor.
world.
Tayo man nagok
The
tayo
best
man
way to
tutagok
start
tayo
is
sa
with our
pagniya
leadership.
katingin
So I encourage you to look at your leadership.
Tayo
Those of
gok
you who are
atan
leaders,
nakpangok tunganon
need improvement, please
kisian amay
improve yourself.
lugulo.
It makes a difference. It makes a
Tayo
difference
gok
to our children.
alango tiyo baga kisian akayo angap tiyo tam na
I would like to thank the leadership that ICC has provided for
tam nagok
not only
ata
the Inuit, but for
atan nagayakpot for ICC.
I think other people in the world.
Alalo ko ino ino namin
We have
sumilaka.
had the privilege of having outstanding leaders.
Tayo gok atan nakiktugon
the
mo
ICC,
atan nakpawya kami tayo mga tap ko ICC.
and now Mary Simon.
Mary Simon ngok.
Alaska should take the lead in the next several years.
Alaska ko bakapin yung kiyuniw pa ako pangok sibulat tining ni akton ngok ICC mun. Tam nagok tayo kinira sibwa.
With your support that it's Alaska's turn. and
Alaska ngok tayo Alaska miksiulak talaga tayo gok kinira go king mele neriuk to go ka sibulak tinig kumigtam na kipot pa yung atanek ICC mun.
The Alaska Federation of Natives is just coming out. We're now beginning to talk about
Tayo gok
where AFN
o kaya
fits,
kita nagat
not just in Alaska, but
nanila ka.
in the United States and internationally. And we will be looking to the ICC to provide us with
Aywa sulip tak ICC kuno tayo ay kang ma
as we proceed
apek sa mo di mo nakanok tut video dik sa may naulat tut siklutik.
AFN.
Tamakkunong alay mo.
We hope that eventually we'll be able to help you.
Tayo tayo kaguwila ni gulun ni tayo tayo man na ICC ni katimayuanod ikayo kuminang na ang naktugot.